Oil. It pretty much runs our entire world, right? But what if I told you that the countries sitting on top of most of it aren't the ones actually using it? That's the fascinating mismatch we're going to unpack today.
Okay, let's just start with a number. 105,130,000. It's a huge, almost ridiculous number. So when the world is it?
Yeah, that massive number isn't for a year or even a month. It's the number of barrels of oil our planet is projected to burn through every single day by 2025. The scale of that is just staggering.
So with that much global demand, we all clearly have a stake in this. But you can bet that consumption isn't spread out evenly. So, which countries have the biggest appetite for oil?
And that brings us to the first part of our story, this incredible thirst for oil. We're going to kick things off by looking at the nations that are by far the biggest users of this resource.
Let's look at another huge number. But this time, it's not for the whole world. This is the daily oil consumption, in barrels, for just one single country. And that country is the United States. In 2023, America burned through over 20 million barrels of petroleum every single day. To put that in perspective, that's nearly a fifth of the entire planet's daily total. Wild.
So the US is clearly a massive player here. But who else is on that list? Let's zoom out a bit and look at the global leaderboard for consumption.
What's really striking here is the scale of it all. The US is at the top, yeah, but look at the numbers coming out of China and India. Together with Russia and Saudi Arabia, these 5 nations are the absolute powerhouses of global oil demand.
This chart really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? The United States, China, and India, just those 3 countries, are responsible for almost 40% of the world's daily oil use. It's an incredible amount of energy being funneled into just a handful of the world's largest economies.
All right, let's flip the coin. We know who uses the oil, but the real question is, who actually has it? And this brings us to the super important concept of proven oil reserves.
So what are we actually talking about here? Proven reserves isn't just a wild guess about oil that might be in the ground. No, this is the oil that we know with a high degree of confidence is there and that we can actually get out profitably with today's technology and at today's prices. It's the oil that's realistically on the table.
So this gets us to the absolute core question of this whole explainer. You'd probably assume that the countries using all this oil are the ones sitting on top of it, right? I mean, it just seems logical. But is that actually true?
The answer is not even close. The country with the world's largest proven oil reserves is Venezuela, with over 300 billion barrels. Right behind them are Saudi Arabia and Iran. Notice anyone missing from this list? The top consumers we just talked about are completely absent.
And this right here is the heart of the matter. Because when you put these 2 sets of data side by side, you see this fundamental disconnect in how global energy actually works.
I mean, look at this. On one side, you've got your top consumers, the United States, China, India. And on the other, the top reserve holders, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Iran. The lists could not be more different.
So it all boils down to this. The geography of who uses oil and the geography of who owns oil are 2 completely different maps. And that one simple fact has enormous consequences for, well, everyone.
Okay, so if the oil isn't where it's being used, how does it get from point A to point B? I mean, this massive geographic gap has to be bridged somehow, right?
Well, that gap is bridged by a ridiculously complex and enormous global system of pipelines, supertankers, and refineries, all of it designed for one single purpose, to move oil from where it is to where it's desperately needed. Let's look at a perfect example to make this real, the Keystone pipeline. It's designed to solve this exact problem. It physically connects Canada's huge oil sands reserves directly to refineries in the US, one of the world's biggest customers. It's the 2nd largest pipeline out of Western Canada, carrying about 14% of the region's crude exports. It's literally a steel bridge built to span that gap between supply and demand.
This fundamental mismatch between supply and demand isn't just about logistics. It creates this really delicate global balancing act with huge implications for all of us.
Think of it like this. Countries sitting on massive reserves, like Venezuela or Saudi Arabia, depend on selling that oil to keep their economies afloat. At the exact same time, major consumers like the US and China depend on getting that oil to power their industries. What you end up with is this powerful state of mutual dependence.
And that's why this matters so much. This simple imbalance, who has the oil versus who uses the oil, is one of the most powerful forces shaping our modern world.
It influences everything from trade deals and political alliances to international conflicts and, yep, the price you end up paying at the pump.
And it all leaves us with one final fascinating question to think about. In this global tug of war between supply and demand, who really has the upper hand? Is it the producer who owns the resource, or the consumer who drives the market? The answer is, well, it's far from simple.